Oh, you made a reservation? We were planning to have a nice meal, just the three of us. Besides, a fancy place like this is way out of your league, you know, being a country girl and all. My mother-in-law Heather narrowed her eyes, scanning me from head to toe, and flicked her pale hand dismissively as if shooing away an insect. In that instant, something inside me shattered. Today was supposed to be a celebration of my birthday with my family. Just last week, my husband John and I had chosen this very restaurant together. A week ago, John had smiled and promised me a birthday dinner here, a restaurant that served my favorite Chinese cuisine. The memory of that promise now amplified the rising tide of sorrow within me. Today is my day. The words tumbled out of my mouth, my voice trembling more than I expected. So what? It's incredibly rude of you to try to barge in on our special occasion. Heather's lips, painted a stark red, curled up at the corners in a cold smile. In an instant, all my hopes were dashed, leaving a hollow ache in my chest. John, the man who had once promised to build a happy life with me, now avoided my gaze. The look in his eyes held none of the warmth from the past. All I ever wanted was to be a part of this family. My eyes burned and my vision blurred. Not wanting anyone to see my tears, I quickly looked down at the floor. As I stared at the intricate patterns of the expensive carpet, a pair of unfamiliar polished leather shoes quietly approached and stopped in front of me. My name is Lisa Brown, 32 years old. I work at what you might call a farm. The morning air is crisp and cool against my skin. It's still dark inside the greenhouse with a faint glow of dawn just visible through the glass. I've been working at my father's agricultural company for over 10 years, and this scene has become incredibly familiar. The weight of the harvest basket in my hand, the smell of the soil, they're all part of my daily life. As I arrange the freshly harvested vegetables, my father's voice echoes through the greenhouse. Good morning, Lisa. We have a shipment going out to a restaurant in downtown San Francisco today, so make sure to double check the order. Okay, got it. My father, Robert, is well known in this area. He's a pioneer in organic farming and runs an agricultural company with 50 employees. In recent years, we've been doing more business with high-end restaurants in the city, and our direct-to-consumer sales have been steadily increasing. As I handle accounting and deliveries, I'm also constantly researching new ways to prepare our vegetables. I've naturally become close with many chefs who use our produce, especially with Chef Michael, the owner of a Michelin-starred Chinese restaurant. His restaurant is renowned for its exceptional quality, and his dedication to sourcing the best ingredients is unparalleled. Miss Brown, I have to have your vegetables. They're simply unmatched. The freshness, the flavor, the aroma, they're in a league of their own. He's told me this countless times. His words are a constant source of encouragement, pushing me to strive for even better quality in our produce. But my personal life isn't as smooth sailing. I've been married to my husband, John Smith, for 3 years. He's a graduate of a prestigious university and works for a major corporation. An elite, as some would say. We met through a mutual friend, and I was drawn to his kind smile, which ultimately led to our marriage. However, as our married life settled into a routine, his true colors started to show. John often claimed to be busy with work, and he rarely made an effort to connect with me. He only gave me $1,000 a month for household expenses, while the rest of his income seemed to vanish into social outings, his hobby of stock trading, and who knows what else. Whenever I tried to discuss anything with him, he would just flash a vague smile and say, "It's fine." That evasive response always left a knot in my stomach. You're clinging to this farming thing, but honestly, you're only able to keep it up because it's your family's business. You've never had a real job, and you're so out of touch with the real world. His words, casually spoken the other day, still ring in my ears. To him, my work is nothing more than an extension of my family's legacy, not a legitimate career. The thought makes my chest tighten with a mixture of frustration and sadness. His mother, Heather, and his sister, Emily, only amplify his sentiments. Organic vegetables? Do they even sell for a high price? Regular supermarket produce is just fine. Lisa, you've never had a proper job before getting married, have you? It must be nice to have it so easy relying on your family's business. I've gotten used to their condescending remarks, but they still sting. They look down on my work, and it feels like they're diminishing my worth as a person. In the midst of all this, my childhood friend Alex Turner has been my only support. Lisa, your vegetables are helping so many people. Don't ever forget that. His words are a lifeline, a source of strength I desperately need. After graduating from college, he joined our agricultural company and is now a key player in sales and product development. He's great at negotiating with clients, always calm and collected, someone you can truly rely on. As I finish preparing the delivery for the day, I can't help but wonder, is this really how things should be? My relationship with John, his mother's and sister's attitudes, my own future. What choices should I make? The sun has fully risen now, and the greenhouse is bathed in soft, warm light. Every time Heather visits, she makes it a point to say, "You should be grateful that John is providing for you." Each time I hear those words, something inside me aches. Is it frustration, anger, or perhaps resignation? I have the urge to retort, but I know from experience that it would change nothing. My retorts are met with deaf ears from Heather, and John simply doesn't care. In her eyes, I'm just a farmer's daughter, lacking a college degree. She likely sees my marriage to her son as a step up for me, something she can't stand. She often throws jabs like, "Be grateful you managed to marry a man with a good college education." Or it's because John works at a big company that you can live so comfortably. No matter how hard I work or how much I contribute to the household finances, in her mind, I'm just a wife being supported by a John. But the reality is starkly different. I'm the one covering most of our living expenses. John should be earning around $4,500 a month after taxes, yet he only gives me $1,000 for the household. Where does the remaining $3,500 go? I've asked him countless times. Each time the answer is the same, a cold, "It's none of your business. It's my money and I can do whatever I want with it." In the beginning, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he had work-related social obligations, or perhaps he was secretly saving for our future. I forced myself to believe these possibilities. But one day, that fragile belief was shattered when I found a receipt tucked under the sofa. It was for a brand-name accessory, and the price tag was over $2,000. I couldn't recall him ever buying me anything for my birthday or our anniversary. A quick glance at the receipt revealed it was from a high-end boutique. In that moment, everything became clear. He was spending money on someone else. A few days later, I secretly checked our credit card statement. It was filled with charges from expensive restaurants and hotels. There were also multiple suspicious cash withdrawals. Upon closer inspection, I discovered they were from a consumer loan company. It appeared that John's salary wasn't enough to cover his lavish spending on this other person, so he had resorted to taking out loans. The debt had already exceeded $30,000. When I realized the extent of it, I felt a chill run down my spine. But what crushed me even more was the realization that even if I told Heather, she would never believe me. Or rather, she would choose not to believe me. She sees her son as perfect, a graduate from a top university, working at a prestigious company. That's her pride and joy, and she would never accept a lowly farmer's daughter like me challenging that image. There's no way John would do such a thing. You're just making up stories again. Be grateful you were even allowed into our family. I could easily imagine her saying those words. Still, I knew I had to do something. Despite the doubts about our marriage, I was still trying to believe in my husband. But this couldn't go on. I couldn't keep using the money I earned to fuel my husband's vanity and hidden spending. The thought filled me with anxiety and a growing sense of loss. I was contemplating whether we should reassess our relationship when I tried to talk to my husband, hoping he would understand. However, when I told Heather about John's debt, she angrily told me to shut up and refused to listen. "You probably married him for his money, didn't you?" Emily chimed in with her usual remarks. When I turned to John for support, he simply told me to not worry about it, showing a complete lack of interest. His indifference broke my heart. But then I started to wonder if I was partly to blame. Had I done something wrong? These thoughts began to swirl in my head. One evening, I tried to talk to John, asking him to contribute more to the household expenses. To my surprise, he became uncharacteristically angry. "Don't you dare tell me how to spend my money." I was taken aback by the ferocity in his eyes, a side of him I had never seen before. I had always held on to a sliver of hope that he was still the kind man I married. But the more I pressed him, the more his facade crumbled, revealing a harsher, colder reality. "Then why don't you try living on just your income? If you have a problem, you can leave." His words were like ice, completely negating my existence. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, as if my heart was being squeezed. From that day on, my suspicions about John only grew stronger. One day, while making a delivery, I spotted a man who looked remarkably like John walking hand in hand with a young woman. The woman was dressed in expensive designer clothes and clung to John's arm in an overly affectionate manner. My mind went blank at the sight. My legs froze and my heart started pounding in my chest. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Is this real? Even when I arrived at my delivery destination, I don't remember what I said or did. That scene kept replaying in my head even after I finished work. Instead of going home, I drove into my parents' house. I found my father working in the fields. "Dad, can I talk to you about something?" My voice was trembling. My father took one look at my face and seemed to understand immediately. Come, let's go somewhere where we can talk calmly. I nodded and started to tell him about what I had seen and my concerns about John's behavior. My father listened patiently without interrupting. After a moment of contemplation, he spoke in a calm voice. First, let's not jump to conclusions. We need to observe the situation carefully and make sure John doesn't suspect a thing. But what if we don't have any proof? I was surprised. I'll try to look into it when I have some free time. His calm demeanor helped to ease my anxiety, if only a little. Around that time, our family's agricultural company started gaining media attention. A local TV program did a special feature on us, highlighting our pioneering work in organic farming, and soon articles about us appeared in national newspapers and online news sites. Lisa, did you see this? They even talked about our vegetables on the morning news. My father's excited voice boomed through the phone. His voice was filled with undisguised joy and excitement. Yes, I saw it. It's amazing. It's all over social media too. And the online shop orders are going through the roof. Indeed, my smartphone was constantly buzzing with notifications. Our website's order history showed that we had received several times our usual number of orders just this morning. Our email inbox was also flooded with inquiries about new business partnerships and interview requests from the social media. Even the buyers who sampled our produce at the trade fair the other day have contracted us to formalize contracts. Really? I can't believe this is happening. I could hear the emotion in my father's voice. It sounded like he was silently exhaling, trying to take it all in. We finally made it this far. Hearing those words, my heart swelled with emotion. When we first started the agricultural company, we never dreamed of getting this much attention. It had taken years of hard work and dedication to our organic farming methods to get to this point. In the beginning, it was a constant battle against weeds and pests. Without using pesticides, we had to invest a lot more time and effort. There were times when our yields were disappointingly low and we had very little produce to sell in the market. This method is too labor-intensive. I don't know if we can keep this up. We heard this sentiment more than once, but my father never gave up. He experimented with soil improvement techniques and implemented natural pest control methods, constantly engaging in trial and error. And his perseverance paid off. Our produce gradually gained a loyal following. It's because you never gave up, Dad, I said. He chuckled softly. No, it's because you were here with me. That's not true. It's because you always believed in it and kept going. I only helped a little. Only a little. If you weren't here, I might have given up a long time ago. I thought I detected a slight tremor in my father's voice. We had overcome countless challenges to get to this day. We had toiled together as a family, working the fields from dawn till dusk, pulling weeds by hand. We had faced the despair of failed experimental crops and zero yields. We had experienced the crushing disappointment of having to discard a large amount of produce right before delivery because it didn't meet the required standards. But we never gave up. My father's lifelong dream was slowly becoming a reality, and being able to witness it firsthand filled me with immense pride. All right then, let's celebrate today. Your mother said she'd make a special dinner since you're coming home. Okay, I'll be there. I'll head over tonight. We'll be waiting. There was a hint of happiness in my father's voice. I hung up the phone and stared at the screen for a moment, letting out a small sigh. This wasn't a dream. Our hard work was finally paying off. My gaze fell on the stack of documents on my desk. It was a list of potential new clients, meticulously filled with names and contact information. I need to work even harder. A surge of determination welled up from deep within me. On the other hand, Heather and Emily's attitudes remained unchanged. They had always looked down on my family's agricultural business, dismissing it as just a farm. You just grow vegetables, right? It's not that big of a deal. Anyone can be a farmer. I could never do such a dirty job. I had heard these comments countless times. They saw no value in my family's hard work or in my father's dedication to organic farming. I had hoped that their attitudes might change if we gained public recognition. But even after we were featured in national media and inquiries poured in, their behavior remained the same. If anything, a subtle tension started to emanate from them. Well, you know how TV is. They exaggerate everything. It's just a fad. It'll pass. Yeah, so what if it's organic? If they can't produce enough to make a profit, it's meaningless. No matter how much hype there is, it's still just a farm. It's a dirty job at the end of the day. They continued to throw their usual snide remarks, but I could sense their underlying anxiety. They had always seen me as someone beneath them. Ever since I married into their family, I was labeled as a farmer's daughter with no college degree, someone with no real worth. But now, with our agricultural company suddenly gaining national recognition and praise, something shifted within them. They could no longer simply look down on me. I had become someone they couldn't ignore. It was at this time that Heather unexpectedly invited me to dinner. "Lisa, it's your birthday, right? Let's all go out for a meal." Huh? I was taken aback. It was completely out of character for Heather to suggest celebrating my birthday. She had completely ignored my birthday every year since I got married. Why the sudden change of heart? As I hesitated, John interjected. "Why not? It's a good opportunity." His eyes held a strange pressure, not encouraging, but rather cornering me. I felt a sense of unease, but couldn't bring myself to refuse. On my birthday, I headed to a high-end Chinese restaurant in the city. The restaurant's exterior was chic and sophisticated, with a glass facade that offered a glimpse of the luxurious interior. It was the kind of place that made passers-by stop and stare. I had dined at places like this before, but tonight's dinner felt different. Even during the car ride to the restaurant, I sensed that something was off. Something was not right. Heather was unusually cheerful. Emily was constantly on her phone, occasionally glancing at me and smirking. And John didn't say a word, his face an unreadable mask as he drove. The car pulled up to the restaurant and a valet opened the door. I took a deep breath, looking at the line of luxury cars in the parking lot. As we reached the entrance, Heather suddenly grinned. "Oh, were you planning to eat here too? You can't get in without a reservation." I was momentarily stunned. Huh? Before I could find my words, John stated coldly, "We didn't make a reservation for you." It felt as though time had stopped. The only sound I could hear was the pounding of my heart in my ears. But, what? Emily looked down at me with disdain. "A high-class place like this isn't suitable for a high school graduate like you. Just go home," Heather chuckled. "Did you really think you'd be eating here with us?" she said, feigning surprise. In that moment, something inside me threatened to snap. Frustration, sadness, anger, despair. A whirlwind of emotions surged within me, burning the back of my throat. "But I tried to compose myself. "It's fine," I managed to utter, but Heather, misinterpreting my words as a sign of defeat, smirked triumphantly and started to head towards our reserved seats. Just then, someone called out from inside the restaurant. "Miss Brown, we've been expecting you." A man, clearly the owner, rushed towards us, looking flustered. "Please, come this way. We have a VIP table ready for you." Heather and Emily froze, their faces turning ashen. They were clearly bewildered, unable to grasp what was happening. I was surprised too, but I followed the owner's lead and headed towards the VIP section. Behind me, I could hear Heather and Emily's frantic whispers. "What's going on? Why is Lisa getting special treatment when she doesn't even have a reservation?" As they started to voice their confusion, the owner addressed them directly. "Miss Brown is a very important client of ours." His words caused Heather and Emily to freeze in their tracks, and even John's face showed a hint of shock. They were clearly struggling to comprehend the situation. I took a deep breath. Heather and Emily, now desperate, turned to the owner. "What do you mean? She's just a farmer's daughter. How can she be a VIP in a place like this? Miss Brown is my benefactor." "Benefactor? What are you talking about?" "She has a deep understanding of vegetables, and she has taught me so much about their preparation. Furthermore, thanks to the farming methods she suggested, our dishes have reached new heights, earning us the accolades we enjoy today." Heather and Emily were speechless. Our restaurant has a contract with her family's agricultural company. That's why when I heard it was her birthday, we prepared a special menu for her. As he spoke, a series of exquisite dishes began to arrive at our table, each one more luxurious than the last. It was a feast fit for royalty, made with the finest ingredients. Even the other dinners in the restaurant were looking on with envy. Heather and Emily were stunned, looking around as if they couldn't believe this was happening. Their confusion was evident as they watched me being ushered to the VIP table. I don't want to eat those vegetables." Heather finally spoke, her voice laced with bitterness and frustration. The owner's demeanor changed instantly. His polite and calm facade crumbled, replaced by a stern and disapproving gaze directed at Heather. "If you can't appreciate the quality of our ingredients, then you are welcome to leave." "What?" Heather gasped. "I have utmost confidence in the produce we source from Miss Brown. If you have a problem with that, then you don't have to dine here." The owner's firm words echoed through the now quiet restaurant. Heather's face turned pale. The hushed whispers of other diners filled the silence, and I could feel their gazes on us. "Did you hear that?" The ingredients this restaurant uses come from her farm. Those people were acting so high and mighty just a moment ago. The hushed conversation reached Heather and Emily's ears. I could see Heather's hands trembling slightly. "Mom, say something!" Emily hissed, trying to get her mother to act, but Heather was too flustered to respond. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way," Heather stammered, bowing her head slightly towards the owner. But the owner remained unmoved, his expression stern. "I apologize, but we prioritize serving customers who appreciate the quality of our ingredients." But, Heather tried to interject, but the owner was resolute. "Please leave." Heather's face contorted in humiliation. She stumbled, almost losing her balance. Emily quickly reached out to steady her, but the gesture only made them look more pathetic in the eyes of the onlookers. "What's going on? Why is this happening?" Emily muttered under her breath, but no one was on their side anymore. John shot me a glare, but he knew that saying anything at this point would be futile. He just clenched his jaw, defeated. The tables had turned completely. Heather's pride was shattered. Emily's arrogance was gone, and John's dominance had crumbled. I slowly sat down in the VIP seat, the plush chair a stark contrast to the uncomfortable position I had been in just moments before. The dishes placed before me were exquisite, each one a miniature work of art, their aromas tantalizing my senses. "This is our special course for today," the owner explained, his voice full of respect and admiration as he gestured toward the dishes. "Please continue to provide us with your excellent produce." The owner bowed deeply. "Thank you, we will," I replied with a gentle smile. For the first time, I felt like I had won against my in-laws. No, it wasn't about winning or losing. I simply wanted them to acknowledge my worth, which they had so persistently denied, and in that I had succeeded. But then I glanced at John. His face was devoid of any expression, as if he had become a different person. Or perhaps this was who he always was. When he had suggested this dinner, saying it's a good opportunity, had he already anticipated this outcome? Or had he simply wanted to humiliate me, never imagining that he would be the one to suffer embarrassment? Either way, I decided then and there that I was done trying to believe in him. That night, for the first time, I felt like I had triumphed over Heather and Emily. I was sure they would never look down on me again, at least not openly. Yet a nagging sense of unease lingered within me. My in-laws weren't the type to back down easily. People who had looked down on me for so long couldn't change their attitudes overnight. Were they plotting their revenge? The thought wouldn't leave my mind. But I wanted to bask in the glory of my victory that night, so I tried to push those thoughts away. That was a mistake. A few days later, the first sign of trouble arrived. "Miss Brown, we have a problem." One of our farmhands rushed towards me, his face pale with worry. He was practically shaking as he showed me his smartphone. "There are posts on social media claiming that illegal pesticides were found in our vegetables." I was stunned. It took me a moment to process what he had said. "What?" The farmhand, still panicking, thrust his phone towards me. The moment I saw the screen, my heart started racing. An anonymous post was displayed on the screen. It had been found that vegetables from Brown Farms contain levels of pesticides that exceed the legal limit. This is particularly dangerous for pregnant women and children. Be careful. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. This couldn't be true. Our farm had always adhered to strict organic practices, ever since my father's time. There was no way we would use illegal pesticides. "This is a lie," I exclaimed. The farmhand's face grew even more anxious. "But it's already spreading. Look! Even my wife's mom group is talking about it." His words made me even more alarmed. I grabbed my smartphone and checked the screen he was showing me. He showed me screenshot after screenshot of social media posts, each one amplifying the false claim. Apparently, Brown Farms vegetables are dangerous. When I called the supermarket, they said they were reconsidering their dealings with them. Maybe it's better not to feed these vegetables to our kids. The comments were all similar, and the source appeared to be local housewives. Although the names were unfamiliar, the content and the speed of its spread were undeniable. It felt like a deliberate attack. "Who would do this?" I muttered. The answer came to me almost immediately. Heather and Emily. The moment I saw their names, the farmhand looked at me with a worried expression. "No way," I said, almost unconsciously, trying to deny it, but in my heart I knew. It was them. They're capable of something like this. A mix of unease and anger churned inside me. The cold, calculating look on Heather's face that day at the restaurant flashed through my mind. She had always hinted at wanting to shut down our farm. To destroy my family, she would resort to anything. "This is serious, Miss Brown. We can't let this slide." The farmhand's face was contorted with worry. "Our sales have already started to dip. If people believe this, it will affect our relationships with supermarkets and other clients." His word made me sigh deeply. He was right. If this rumor spread, it could jeopardize the very existence of our farm. A cold sweat broke out on my skin at the thought. This is unacceptable, I declared, and you found determination hardening my resolve. No matter what, I had to expose this lie and reveal the truth. If Heather was involved, I was prepared to fight back with everything I had. The farm hand seemed to breathe a little easier, seeing my determined expression. What should we do, Miss Brown? I took a deep breath and spoke with conviction. We need to gather evidence and find out who's behind this. We need to uncover their motives. The farmhand immediately started preparing to take action. As I watched him, a steely glint sharpened my gaze. I would expose this conspiracy, no matter what it took. I was sure they hadn't forgiven me for embarrassing them at the restaurant. Instead of confronting me directly, they were probably trying to destroy me socially. Just then, the phone rang. It was one of our clients, a large restaurant chain. They had received calls from concerned customers and wanted an explanation. Next, a local supermarket called, saying they had to temporarily suspend our contract out of an abundance of caution. Our credibility was crumbling. Everything my father had worked so hard to build was falling apart in an instant. More than anger, I felt a profound sense of urgency and sorrow. I had to protect my father's dream. From that point on, I threw myself into finding a way to fix the situation. If we could trace the source of the social media posts, we might be able to identify the culprit. I contacted Alex, and he immediately put me in touch with a specialized law firm that could help with the investigation. A few days later, we discovered that many of the posts originated from the same IP address. And the location of that IP address? It's a service provider near your mother-in-law's residence. I knew it! That night, Heather and Emily paid me a visit. The moment I heard the knock on the door, I knew. But I pretended to be surprised when I opened the door. Heather wore her usual strange smile, while Emily had a cold look on her face. I could sense that something was about to happen. I deliberately mentioned, loud enough for them to hear, to my husband. Alex said they're close to identifying the person who spread those lies. The moment I said that, Heather and Emily froze. Their eyes widened and their faces paled. I continued, not missing their reaction. Once they trace the IP address, it'll be easy to find out who made those posts. Heather's face turned even whiter. She started to sweat, and a slight tremor was visible in her hands. I didn't miss any of it. Heather was silent for a moment, then her voice shook as she spoke. It doesn't matter. She tried to sound nonchalant, but I could sense the underlying panic. Emily didn't react to her mother's words. She just stared at her mother coldly. But it will be a big problem if they sue for defamation. At her words, Heather's eyes widened, and she reacted even more strongly, her face turning completely white. Her panic was now obvious. Heather glared at Emily and then, raising her voice, shouted, "You're the one who started this," Emily calmly retorted. "No, it was you, Mother." Emily's voice had a chilling calmness to it. Heather tried to raise her voice again, but Emily didn't back down. This time, Emily turned to John and said, "It was originally John's doing, wasn't it?" John reacted strongly to her words, his face red with anger. "I was just doing what you two told me to." The tense atmosphere in the room suddenly exploded. Heather glared at Emily again, who didn't back down, and John vehemently retorted. They started to blame each other, their voices rising in a heated argument. I watched them in silence, a deep sadness and disappointment spreading through me. "You can take all the blame. I have nothing to do with it." "All right. Why don't you just tell me everything, that you were the mastermind, and pin it all on Dad? I didn't do anything wrong. I couldn't help it. Not after what she said to me." Heather waved her hands dismissively, while Emily maintained her icy composure. But as I watched their pathetic display, I felt nothing. I looked at the three of them with cold eyes, a quiet certainty settling within me. This family was beyond saving. There was no trust left between people who destroyed everything and wasted it. Enough! There's no point in talking any further. My words, low but firm, cut through their argument. Heather and Emily fell silent, and John looked at me breathless. I felt no sympathy for him. Everything was broken beyond repair. I've already filed a report with the authorities. The moment I said that, their faces drained of color. Heather was in shock, and even Emily was at a loss for words. "What? Drop the charges!" she pleaded, her voice a mix of panic and anger. "Why would I do that?" I responded, calmly and firmly. "Why are you doing this to us?" Heather, now completely unhinged, glared at me with pure hatred. "I just wanted to make your life miserable." Her words were like shards of ice piercing my heart. "I didn't care if your precious company went under." The sheer cruelty of her confession left me numb. I couldn't believe that the woman who was supposed to be family could utter such heartless words. I couldn't speak. I just clenched my trembling fists and took a deep breath. "Why did you target me on my birthday?" I asked, but no one answered. Instead, I voiced my own conclusion. You wanted to tear John and me apart, didn't you? The moment I said that, Heather and Emily briefly averted their eyes, unable to completely hide their guilt. Heather tried to speak, but no words came out, only a slight trembling of her lips. Emily remained silent, her hands clasped together, her gaze fixed on the floor. That's not true. It wasn't like that. John's denial only made me feel colder. A fresh wave of anger and sorrow washed over me. His refusal to take responsibility for his actions further distanced him from me. But I knew the truth. I knew about his affair. Your words mean nothing to me anymore. When I said that, a flicker of surprise and unease crossed John's face. Alex's investigation revealed that your mistress isn't just an ordinary adulteress. John's face instantly changed color, his eyes widening in alarm. Heather and Emily listened intently, their faces grim. She has been involved with other married men, engaging in fraudulent activities. The room fell silent again after my revelation. Heather trembled slightly and Emily remained silent, staring at me. I ignored their stares and continued. Her education and work history are all fabricated. She has been swindling money and gifts from other men, and you were involved with such a woman. John tried to make an excuse, but no words came out. At that moment, I knew everything. I knew that John had been having an affair with that woman for the past year. I knew that he had been spending most of his monthly salary on his mistress. I knew that he had taken out loans to give her money. And I knew that, as a result, he had accumulated a debt of several $100,000. What were you thinking? You betrayed me, the person who was supposed to be supporting our family, and did all this behind my back. My voice gradually rose in anger, tears streaming down my cheeks. John couldn't meet my gaze, remaining silent with his head bowed. Heather fidgeted, looking increasingly uneasy. But you went too far too. Suddenly Emily spoke up, her voice accusing. Surprised, I retorted coldly. I went too far? Did you forget who started all this? If you knew about John's affair, you should have told me. Trying to corner me like this is just cruel. Emily couldn't refute my words and fell silent. Heather also remained quiet, simply looking back and forth between John and me. You're the one who kept silent, not us. What were you planning to do, ignoring us like this? Heather's words only fueled my anger. I kept silent because I trusted you, but not anymore. My trust in all of you is completely gone. The words spilled out like venom. When I found out about your affair and the massive debt you accumulated, I was devastated. But it doesn't end here. I will expose everything you've done. John flinched and took a step back, but I had no intention of backing down. I didn't care how ruthless Heather and Emily were. I had nothing left to fear. Uncovering the truth was my only priority now. And then, as a final blow, Heather spat out at me. If only you weren't around, everything would have been fine. Her words were filled with contempt and disdain. They had planned for John to initiate the divorce to avoid the scandal of his affair and the potential alimony claims. They had harassed me, hoping I would be the one to ask for a separation. Facing this truth, I felt no lingering attachment. I took a deep breath and said one last time, goodbye. And with that, I walked away from everything, returning to my parents' home. Several months have passed since then. At first, I felt nothing but despair, but gradually things started to change. After it was reported that John and his family were being sued for defamation for spreading false information, the situation rapidly escalated. The incident was covered on television as a case of a prominent corporate executive's family orchestrating a systematic harassment campaign against an agricultural company. It was even repeatedly featured on local news programs. As the news spread, our business partners reacted strongly. The situation escalated to the point where they considered filing criminal charges for business obstruction, and John was subsequently fired from his job. Seeing his downfall on television stirred up mixed emotions within me. Initially, I had felt powerless, but witnessing his suffering brought a sense of relief. His mistress, fearing the debt collectors, vanished without a trace. I tried calling her, but she had blocked my number. No matter how many times I tried to contact her, there was no response. It was clear that she no longer cared about me. I didn't dwell on it. With her out of the picture, our lives gradually started to return to normal. And then I remembered what John had said to me, sobbing, that day. I did what my mother told me to do, and look what happened. He had cried, full of regret. Honestly, those tears meant nothing to me now. No matter how much he regretted his actions, it was too late. My heart had completely hardened. Back at my parents' house, I decided to work hard alongside my father and family to restore our reputation. I felt that the ordeal had strengthened the bonds within my family. Our agricultural company gradually regained its credibility, and our relationships with our business partners were restored. The negative impact of the false rumors slowly faded over time, and our efforts started to bear fruit once again. I too had grown stronger and more resilient through these trials. I felt different, somehow changed from who I used to be, and with that realization, I started to feel a sense of pride in myself. And Alex, he had tirelessly supported me and our agricultural company throughout the ordeal. His contributions were instrumental in resolving the legal issues we faced. Without Alex, I don't know what would have become of our farm. My father, too, acknowledged Alex's unwavering integrity and kindness. I trusted Alex implicitly. 6 months later, Alex and I naturally grew closer. Initially, our relationship was purely professional, but we gradually found ourselves wanting to know more about each other on a personal level. Alex patiently waited for my emotional wounds to heal, all the while continuing to support me with unwavering devotion. I was deeply grateful for his kindness. Together, we embarked on a new venture for our agricultural company, establishing a research facility dedicated to organic cultivation. We were committed to furthering our research and working hard every day. We spent countless hours together researching new vegetable cultivation methods and engaging in trial and error. It was undoubtedly demanding work, and there were challenging times, but we grew together through it all. Eventually, we confessed our feelings for each other and started dating. My father warmly embraced our relationship and decided to entrust the future of our agricultural company to Alex. I was deeply grateful for Alex's sincere character and the unwavering support he had always shown me. I want to nurture your father's dream and this company together with you. When Alex said those words, I felt a profound sense of happiness for the first time in a long while. It was unthinkable to think that even after enduring such a difficult period, I could experience such joy. We started our new life together, acknowledging and respecting each other every step of the way. With a determination to overcome the pain of the past and build a future together, I chose to walk hand in hand with Alex. And I knew that our agricultural company would continue to flourish.